What's going on, guys? It's Pixelated, and today I bring forth to you news that we've all been waiting for since the release of the PS5 in November of last year. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I've enjoyed this console so much playing PS4 games, upgraded versions of PS4 games with that buttery smooth 60 FPS, and PS5 exclusive games that give me those incredible visuals like Demon's Souls, Returnal, even Spider-Man Miles Morales, even though that's technically not a PS5 exclusive since it was on PS4 as well. There was always one thing that was a constant burden to me with this console, and that was the built-in meager 825 gigabytes of storage, with no other high storage SKUs to be seen in the wild or announced by Sony at all. Now, to be fair, a lot of games that have a standalone PS5 version tend to be a lot smaller than their multi-platform counterparts. This is in large part due to Sony's Kraken compression tech and their bleeding edge leading in-class built-in SSD on the PS5. This piece of tech was designed specifically to work with the innards of the PS5 and Sony's compression tech to make shrinking game size possible with zero loss in performance. Some performance tests actually show the PS5 loading some games faster than their multi-platform counterparts that aren't using nearly as much compression. Seriously, what Sony has achieved here is a piece of technical mastery. However, even with PS5 game sizes being smaller with no compromises, 825 gigabytes still is not that much in the grand scheme of things, especially when the operating system takes a nice chunk of that. You basically start off with 670 gigabytes of storage, and when a game like Call of Duty takes up 150 to 200 gigabytes in one go, that's already 1/3 of your storage gone right there. That might be fine if you like to play 2 or 3 big games or a handful of games depending on the size of the game, or you don't mind deleting games and re-downloading them, or moving games from the SSD to an external hard drive to then move games from the external hard drive to the SSD to play them if they are PS5 games. Which, by the way, it does take an unexpectedly long amount of time to transfer games from the SSD to an external hard drive, and vice versa if that external hard drive is not an SSD. But for many of us with expansive game collections, and there's a lot of us who would like to access a game on a whim at the touch of a button, more storage is not just a luxury, it's a necessity. And with the new update, we finally have access to that closed-off M.2 NVMe SSD slot built into the PS5 for external storage. That's right, now you can take the top off this bad boy and finally install that SSD you've had sitting on your desk for months on end. I'm not the only one, right? You might have noticed a few videos of people installing SSDs in their PS5s last month. Those were only people who had access to the beta system software update. They're in a beta program for PlayStation. It wasn't rolled out to everyone then, so it might have caused a bit of confusion, and I'm sure there were definitely people who tried to install SSDs in their PS5 realizing they had to remove it again since they didn't actually have the software update, which is why I waited until the software update was rolled out to everyone to make this video. I'm also not in any beta for the PlayStation for any software updates, so installing this SSD in my PS5 last month would have just forced me to remove it again. Now, before we get started, it's been a while since I uploaded a video, so I might mess this up, but feel free to like the video and subscribe if you happen to enjoy it at any point, and hit that notification bell. Just give it a little ring so you don't miss out on the next video. Now, there are also a handful of other changes that Sony's making with the user interface with the UI that might be of interest to you, but we'll cover that after I finish installing this SSD on the PS5. Okay, before I install this SSD, I wanted to make sure to go over a few requirements. I forgot to do that. There are only a handful of SSDs that are compatible with the PS5 at this current moment. They have to meet a certain list of specs to be compatible. I'll list the specs here, but some of them include the NVMe SSD has to be a Gen 4 SSD. It has to have read speeds of higher than 5500 megabytes per second. That is 5.5 gigabytes a second. And the last main requirement for the SSD is that it should have a heatsink to help dissipate the heat that comes out of a Gen 4 SSD, because Gen 4 SSDs get really hot, and the PS5 doesn't have a built-in heatsink for this thing, so you gotta buy one that has one on it. The heatsink also has to be a certain size so that it's not too big that it won't fit in the SSD storage bay in the PS5. I'm going to put up a list of SSDs that I found that are compatible and have a heatsink on them, but if you do happen to get a Gen 4 SSD without a heatsink, you can always buy an aftermarket heatsink as long as it fits, as long as it meets the specs, their requirements. I ended up going with the WD Black SN850 1TB. I wish I got the higher terabyte storage, but right now these things are pretty expensive. I got mine on sale. It sold out when I got it because Well, it was on sale, but you can probably find a deal once in a while. The good thing with electronics is when they're not limited edition, they do continue to restock, so you won't have trouble finding these at some point. But if you do want to save money and you are willing to deal with deleting and re-downloading games or doing the whole transferring from external hard drive to SSD and SSD to external hard drive, etc., you might want to wait it out. You can probably save a few dollars if you wait till next year, maybe even later, to get even a higher storage SSD for the price that you can get a terabyte, 1 terabyte SSD right now. All right, on to the installation. So first thing you want to do is make sure you turn it off completely. Don't unplug it from rest mode, otherwise you're going to get Sony's OS complaint feature popping up letting you know you made a boo-boo. Make sure to disconnect everything and blow the dust off as I did right here. You know how annoying that dust be. Unsheath the PS5 from the stand, keep it at a good distance as you won't need it to dismantle this beautiful beast. Now the SSD bay is actually on the bottom end of the PS5, so if you own a disc edition, it's the side with the disk drive, easily seen by the slot. If you own the digital edition, just flip your PS5 to the panel without the PS logo on it. To remove the panel, you sort of have to lift up and pull or push to the right side at the same time. I find it feels kind of weird, so I just give it a nice little love tap to the right that pops it right off. And that's all it takes to get access to the SSD bay. It's right under this thin layer of metal right here. Unscrew this Warzone armor plate. Neat detail on the screw. It's got the signature Sony button shapes on them. And this one is a little tough to notice, but there's a screw with a small ring at the top of the drive bay that you need to unscrew, as these are two things that'll keep your brand new SSD in place. The best method I've found to install the SSD in is to first place the ring in the hole labeled 80. That's the length most standard commercial M.2 NVMe SSDs are. Slot the SSD at a 45-degree angle. You'll hear a tactile click once it's in its place. Then screw in the SSD into the number 80 hole that it will inevitably align with. Screw the armor plate back into place. You might be tempted to just keep it off, but you're better off just putting it back in place so you don't lose it and it protects your SSD from dust. And finally, place the faceplate back in its place. I typically just lay it in its expected position and push into the edges until I hear it snap in place. And you're done. So when I was going through the initial steps that you have to go through once you boot your PS5, the first time you boot your PS5 with the SSD, you have to reformat it and do all those types of things, and turns out I wasn't recording, so I can't go back and show you that. But what I can show you is that now once you go to your storage, you go into settings, you go to your storage, you can see now that the M.2 SSD storage is there. It is an option to install your games in. You can even select items to move. You can move your games in. I have the option to move to USB extended storage because I have an external hard drive connect, as well as the M.2 SSD storage. So I'm going to go ahead and move some things in there so my internal SSD finally has some space. All right, now you know how to install the SSD into a PlayStation 5. Congrats. Pretty simple stuff. I know it looks intimidating at first, but it's really not. So there are also a handful of UI changes that came with this update that were probably requested by other users. A lot of them don't really pertain to me. I don't use a lot of these features, but there are a few that will benefit me, and I'll mention them right now. One of them is rearranging the control center icons at the bottom of the PS5 main menu. What I noticed right after I updated the system software was that I could rearrange the control center icons quite easily. One of the biggest things for me was, for whatever reason with my internet connection, I use Wi-Fi to connect to my PS5. It's not connected via Ethernet cable, and for some reason the way the communication works with the Wi-Fi in my PS5 and my modem, sometimes I get drastically low internet speeds, like 5 megabytes a second to 10 megabytes a second. But when the Wi-Fi is working properly on my PS5, it kicks back up to the proper speed around 300 to 400 megabytes a second. And sometimes when I'm in game, I have to pause it and I have to go check my internet connection. I have to go through the whole menu, go to the settings menu, find the network settings, and then check the internet connection to see if it's performing to spec or if it's giving me that slow internet speed again, and if I have to reset it to figure it out. But being able to rearrange the control center icons, I found that there was a control center icon for network settings, and I can just put that in my control center icon. So next time, all I have to do is press the PS button during the game and just go down to the control center icons, click on the network settings, and I can go straight to it from there. The other big change that really pertains to me is that the game library now shows PS5 and PS4 platform indicators for each video game. They're more prevalent, they're right there, so you know which version of the game you have installed on your console. This was a real big issue for me in the beginning when I first got the PS5, because when I first downloaded Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, I downloaded the PS4 version not knowing that I downloaded the PS4 version, then I downloaded the PS5 version not knowing that I downloaded the PS5 version because I couldn't tell which one was which. Initially, I had to go in and play the game to figure it out. So now you can tell right away, which I think is extremely necessary. I don't know how they didn't think this was necessary. necessary to include from the beginning of launch, but I'm glad it made its way into the system at some point. There were a few other updates that I find really cool, like the 3D audio support for built-in TV speakers. It's a pretty cool feature for people playing on TV with no extra speakers. It's not really relevant to me because I play on a monitor with headphones on, and if I do play on a TV, I have external 2.1 surround speakers. Not really surround, they're 2.1, so it's 2-channel stereo speakers with a subwoofer, but I would be really interested to see how it works with TV speakers and how much of an effect it really has. The next feature I'm intrigued to try out, even though I don't really think it's beneficial to me, is that Remote Play now lets you use mobile data. Now, I don't expect this to be a valuable feature really. I mean, latency is already a pain with just using Wi-Fi. I don't like playing on Remote Play even with Wi-Fi, so I can't imagine what it'll be like with mobile data. On top of that, in Canada, there really is no unlimited data plan. I mean, there is, but you know what they do. They slow it down after a certain amount. They slow down the download speeds, the data speeds. Imagine you just end up using all your mobile data on Remote Play, then you go out and try to use your internet on your phone and it's just super slow. It's not ideal. Not ideal at all. Now, this is a feature that I actually do like and will probably be useful to me once in a while, and it is the fact that it's now easier to message your friends through the control center. You don't have to go into multiple menus. You don't have to go into the game base and then click on your friend to message them. You can message them directly through the control center, and I think that's a very valuable feature. The rest of the features, they're all nice quality of life features. I don't think they're going to have a big effect for me. They're not going to have a big impact. You can check them on PlayStation's YouTube channel or on their website on their patch notes. Bringing it back around to the SSD, I will reiterate this about these Gen 4 SSDs with above 5.5 gigabyte read speeds. These things are absolutely crazy expensive right now, ranging from $230 to $300, depending if you find it on sale, if you buy it without a heatsink, or if you get it at the regular price. You're impatient like I am, even though I did end up finding it on sale because I bought it before the update came out. And so if you're not pressed for storage right now, or if you're okay with deleting and re-downloading games, or going back and forth with the SSD and external hard drive, swapping games back and forth here and there, I would say you can wait a year or so for prices to drop on these. But if you're impatient or you value the space like I do and you want to get the storage right now, you can go ahead and go to your local PC hardware store and grab one of these. I'll even leave a link down below that you can go ahead and get one of these. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, make sure to lay the smack down on that like and subscribe button and give that notification bell a little ring. I'll catch you in the next one. Pixelated has a solid state.